Hey hello everyone, I'm Broughy1322. Now, I've mentioned it in a few videos before, and mainly around the time when the T20 actually was released, that the T20 is broken on old gen. It's nowhere near as quick as what it is on current gen platforms. Now, the reason I haven't made a video about this before is, frankly, I just thought that it would be fixed by now. It's a pretty major issue because it is a hell of a lot slower on old gen, and it's a pretty easy fix as well, but nothing seems to have been happened, and it's not as if Rockstar don't know about this, because I did see at the time a lot of people contacted them about it, but still nothing has been done. So I figured it was time to make a video about it. I needed to go back on old gen anyway on the 360 to finish off the achievements on there so I could get the game completed when it came to heists. So I took the opportunity to test somebody else's T20 on old gen and basically get a lap time for it and be able to make this video and make this comparison. Now, the problem that the T20 has on old gen is that it doesn't get the traction that the T20 does on current gen, and the reason for that is the rear spoiler. Now, here's an example of the spoiler working on both current gen and old gen. So when people say the spoiler works on old gen, all they're talking about is the fact that it flips up at the back and it looks as if it's doing something. Now, in actual fact, on old gen, it isn't actually doing anything, whereas on new gen, it does have an effect, and I'll talk about that in a second. But as you can see, based on the lap time that you're seeing here, the current gen version of the T20 is a lot quicker. And cars from current gen to old gen are exactly the same, apart from PC, where it's more about frame rate differences that you may get a little some quicker lap times. In terms of, say, going from PS3 to PS4, the Osiris will be able to get exactly the same lap time on both. The Zentorno will be able to get exactly the same lap time on the 360 as it can on the Xbox One. There's no difference between all of the platforms in that respect, so there shouldn't be a difference in the terms of the lap times that the T20 can get. But as you can see here, there is, and it's a pretty major difference as well, you know, a good 3 seconds per lap, which puts the T20 on old gen about the same pace as the Cheetah. Now, that's something that I've mentioned before in a previous video, and this was the video that I actually mentioned it on. In the 8th episode of this series, I basically proved that the spoiler on the T20 actually works, insofar as it has a functional purpose. It actually does something to the performance of the car, and I proved that by comparing the spoiler when it was working to the spoiler when it was broken. I made a few small hits on the back of the T20 that meant the spoiler wouldn't pop up anymore, because it is possible to break it. And when that happened, the car handled completely differently. It was much worse in terms of traction in the corners. So what I did is I've compared the old gen lap to that current gen lap with the spoiler broken, and as you'll see, it's exactly the same. So the spoiler on the T20 increases traction. When it pops up, it increases the traction that is available to the car, which allows it to corner better. It allows it to brake better as well. And when that spoiler isn't working on current gen, when it's all the way down, you lose that extra traction bonus. Now on old gen, you don't get that traction bonus to start with. It just doesn't happen. There must be something to do with old gen, maybe a limitation of the console, that when the T20, it doesn't have that ability to have that dynamic aspect to the spoiler. So when it's raised, it has exactly the same traction as when it's lowered, because it can't sort of have that dynamic aspect like current gen can. But as you can see from these lap times, they're pretty much exactly the same, apart from a few maybe tiny mistakes on a lap here and there. But they handle identically as well. You know, I could certainly feel from when I was driving, they handle exactly the same. So on old gen, yes, the spoiler pops up, but you're not getting any bonus speed or effect from that. Nothing happens. It's just as if the spoiler wasn't there, wasn't popping up on current gen. So this is a very easy fix, you know. All Rockstar has to do is add that traction bonus onto the T20 on old gen so that it's there all the time. You know, you don't have to have that dynamic aspect. Just add that extra traction onto the T20 as a base value, and then it would be fine. It would be exactly the same. But as it stands right now, the T20 on old gen is pretty much unusable in high level racing, because it's just way off the pace. It's even slower than a Cheetah, which is, you know, absolutely criminal. And it's amazing that a car that costs $2.2 million in GTA terms hasn't been fixed yet, and people think they're buying the quickest car in the game, which is what it is on current gen, but ultimately you don't get that traction increase and it's a lot slower. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Hopefully Rockstar will pay attention to this and fix it for those of you who are still on old gen and do still like to race. I'll leave a link in the description where you can possibly send this to Rockstar if you want to let them know about it, but it's crazy that it hasn't already been fixed, frankly. I'm going to leave this as a reference video, so when this does get fixed, I'll update the first line of the description. So if you're watching this in the future, check that first line of the description and I will mention there if it has been fixed or if it hasn't. If it has, I'll just update that rather than sort of making a new video or anything like that. So thank you guys for watching. Leave all your thoughts down below about the idea that Rockstar hasn't actually fixed this yet. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.